What if I told you Dio's rise wasn't just built on legendary riffs and arena-filling vocals, but also on a handshake deal that would later tear the band apart? Here's how that whole mess went down.
Like, subscribe, thank you.
I hope he dies. He's a asshole. I'll never be with him.
Ronnie James Dio built a dynasty out of fire and myth. Vivian Campbell, Jimmy Bain, Vinny Appice were the engine behind the first seismic blast, Holy Diver, then the last in line, both platinum punches that rewired metal's DNA. The songs were massive, the image untouchable, but behind the dragons and the swords, the money didn't match the myth. The deal was unwritten, but the terms were understood. Work cheap now, and by album 3, the band becomes a partnership. No more weekly wages, no more playing sidemen while the frontman catches the real checks. But when the moment came, the offer never did. The curtain dropped. Campbell was out, no warning, no payout, just silence. And that is where the cracks in Dio's legacy begin to show. Ronnie James Dio knew exactly what he was building. After fronting Rainbow and reviving Black Sabbath, he wasn't chasing success, he was sculpting it. In 1982, he set the foundation. Vivian Campbell, barely out of his teens, but already shredding with surgical precision. Jimmy Bain, steady and sharp from the Rainbow days. Vinny Appice, straight out of Dio's Sabbath era, with fists like wrecking balls. And the deal? Simple. No contracts, no lawyers, just a promise. Work cheap for now, minimum wage, and by album 3, the deal would flip. No more payroll, no more boss and backup. You would all become partners. Equal stake in the records, tours, t-shirts, flying off the merch tables. A brotherhood paid in gold, not scraps. And they all bought in, and they built it. And as the hits started landing, so also did the questions. For Vivian Campbell, this wasn't just a handshake, it was a bond, a matter of principle and integrity. He saw the band as a four-way creative engine, and Ronnie's promise as a line in the sand. Stick through 3 albums and the balance would shift. Now, Craig Goldie, who stepped in after the fallout, gave Ronnie's version. According to him, Dio's vision wasn't about ownership, it was more about the optics. By the 3rd album, if the band had risen to his level of fame, then maybe it would make sense to split the pie. Solo albums, media heat, front cover status. But according to Goldie, that moment never came because as Ronnie saw it, they never pulled enough weight. And that promise blurred into perception. One side expected equity, the other expected elevation. And when neither showed up, things started heating up. Vivian Campbell was pulling $100 a week while tracking Holy Diver. $100. This is for the album that would define Dio's legacy. When the tour rolled around, it bumped up to $400 a week, but the message stayed the same. You're on salary. You don't own this. Wages went up slightly with The Last in Line and Sacred Heart, but the structure never changed. No royalties, a back end, no merch cuts, no piece of the door, just a flat paycheck regardless of how many shirts sold, records moved, or stadiums filled. And Campbell made it painfully clear. They were hired hands, not partners, not even close. According to him, he made less than the lighting guy, less than the crew loading the gear. And yet here he was co-writing, recording, touring, helping build an empire he'd never be allowed to share in. By the time that 3rd album landed, radio silence. Now Ronnie James Dio's wife, Wendy, wasn't having any of it. The idea that Vivian Campbell was earning less than a roadie, she called it out. She said the dragon, Denzel, 18 feet tall and spewing fire on that stage, didn't build itself. The stage show was a beast, and Ronnie paid for it, out of pocket. No inflated ticket prices, costs passed on to the fans, just one man bankrolling the entire spectacle. And Wendy pushed back hard. Those salaries had context. The lights, pyro, animatronics. Ronnie hired external production crews to run the circus, and those companies set their own rates. So if the lighting guy made more, it wasn't because the band was underpaid, according to her. It was because the show was designed to melt faces, not balance spreadsheets. And Craig Goldie would go on to back that up. And they'd say that Ronnie's own salary dropped as the tour cost ballooned. Meanwhile, Campbell, Appice, and Bain got raises. Not partnership, not ownership, but more money. And from the Dio camp side, the message was clear. The paycheck matched the price of the show. But from the band side, the Dragon wasn't the only thing breathing fire. One detail kept resurfacing like a bad tabloid headline. Vivian Campbell's Ferrari, a sleek 308 GTB. Red, loud, and impossible to ignore. For Wendy Dio, that car wasn't just a flex, she called it a smoking gun. Proof, she claimed, that Ronnie had been fair. If Campbell was really scraping by on grim wages, how did he end up behind the wheel of a Ferrari? She'd go on, say $100 a week? Then how would you buy a car like that? And she weaponized the purchase as a rebuttal to every accusation, a one-line defense against years of resentment. And to her, it was a total mic drop, but for the players who felt boxed out of the band's success, that Ferrari didn't settle the argument. It only poured gas on it. And Vivian Campbell, meanwhile, did not dodge the Ferrari question. He dismantled it. Yeah, he bought one, but it wasn't some opulent prize from Rockstar Riches. It was supposedly the cheapest model. Basic production line, not a showroom trophy. A used Ferrari 308 GTB. Not a custom-ordered chariot of excess. The secret? No overhead. He didn't have to pay rent. He had no bills. When he wasn't on the road, he was back in Ireland, living with his parents. He saved everything. Tour per diems, wages, scraps. The same way he had once scraped together enough for a Les Paul, he stockpiled every cent with focus. And the final boost? A killer exchange rate. Dollars to pounds, leveraged just right. But Campbell never framed the argument around the money itself. The issue wasn't how many zeros were on the check. It was more about the trust. A promise that vanished the minute the band got big enough for it to matter. That Ferrari might have turned heads, but it never changed the math. And Holy Diver just hit hard. Rainbow in the Dark. The title track, Holy Diver. Instant classics. The Last in Line hit just as hard. We Rock. Egypt, The Chains Are On. Songs built for those arenas. Crowds got bigger. Stage show exploded. Denzel the Dragon. Laser. Smoke. Dio wasn't just a band anymore. It was actually a spectacle. And the money did follow. Vinny Appice remembered one tour alone pulling in $8 million. Adjusted for today, that'd be like $80 million. But while the grosses hit the stratosphere, the paycheck stayed grounded. Appice said it flat. Outside of Ronnie, no one saw a dime for those numbers. Just a weekly cut, no bonuses or percentages, no stake. The band helped build a machine that roared louder with every mile, but when the cash rained down, they stood in it like strangers. And Sacred Heart was the turning point, not just in sound, but also in the stakes. This was album 3, the one that was supposed to flip the switch, the one tied to the original promise, equity. No more flat rates, no more weekly wages. This was the checkpoint where talk turned into shares. And Vivian Campbell didn't storm in demanding contracts, he eased into it. Polite reminders, subtle nudges. He's seen the crowds, heard the anthems blasting from every car stereo, watched the band transform into a touring juggernaut, and now he wanted what was promised. But Ronnie would push it off. He said, after the album, let's finish the record first. So the conversation didn't die, it just got delayed. And Campbell could feel that delay turning into a wall. With Sacred Heart wrapped, Vivian Campbell brought it up again. The promise, the deal, the transition they'd all worked toward. But this time Ronnie passed the baton, said they'd revisit it once the tour kicked off, and that Wendy Dio would actually handle all the details. And that's when the alarm bells started ringing. Campbell, Appice, and Bain could see it plain as day now. The equity shift was not coming. No talks, no numbers, no hint of a new arrangement, just more stalling. And even Claude Schnell, who wasn't part of the original promise, saw what was happening. He singled out Vinny Appice, said he was promised a lot but did not receive it. Sympathy from the sidelines and confirmation from within. In case you don't know, Claude was the keyboard player for the Dio band. 3 albums deep, record sales through the roof, sold out tours, but when it came time to cash in on the brotherhood they thought they'd built, all they got was silence and a moving target. And Vivian Campbell wasn't going to let it slide. He actually became the loudest voice in the room. The squeaky wheel, as some called him. And really, it was that point when Ronnie looped in Wendy to handle what had originally been a personal commitment, something totally snapped inside of Campbell. That was not the deal. That's not what they signed on for. He was starting to see the writing on the wall. And then they had a new contract, and Vivian refused to sign it. It made no mention of equity, no acknowledgement of the original deal, just more of the same. Salary, subordination. And according to Campbell, he believed that it was because Ronnie had actually folded. And when it came time to honor his word, he buckled under Wendy's influence. To Vivian, Ronnie didn't fight, he deferred. And Wendy, in Campbell's view, never saw the band as a real unit. Just Ronnie's entourage. Swappable, disposable. And the keyboard player Claude Schnell didn't mince words. He actually said that Campbell was set up, but Wendy had already marked him for a replacement. They were already eyeing Craig Goldie, a known quantity for Ronnie's rough cut days. Someone easier to manage, somebody who might not push back as much. And from Campbell's view, this was a purge. Quiet assassination dressed as a business decision. And Wendy Dio didn't sidestep it at all. According to her, Vivian Campbell was just flat out fired. By her. And in Wendy's words, Campbell thought that he was as important as Ronnie and expected to be paid like it. And to her, she said that was laughable. Ronnie was the brand, the legend, the voice that built the empire. Campbell, in her view, was just one of the hired hands who started believing his own press. But she painted the rift as ego, Vinny inflating his value, demanding parity with a frontman who had already conquered Rainbow and Sabbath before Dio even existed. She said he was just getting too big for his britches. And then years later, she'd actually sharpened the narrative, accusing Campbell of trying to drag the band into a more commercial pop direction. something that Ronnie had outright rejected. More than a money fight, it was actually a philosophical clash as well. Artistic purity versus crossover compromise. And from Wendy's side, the call was clear. Protect Ronnie, protect the vision, cut the cord. And Craig Goldie totally backed up Ronnie and Wendy. He said as far as Vinny was concerned, it wasn't about contracts or promises, it was about attitude. Goldie said that Campbell showed disrespect to Ronnie on many occasions, chalking it up to entitlement. To him, Campbell believed he deserved equal footing with Ronnie without earning it. While Ronnie, Jimmy Bain, and Vinny Appice had already carved their names into the metal's upper ranks with Rainbow and Sabbath, Campbell, in Goldie's view, hadn't paid those dues. Vinny Appice saw it coming and still hated it. When Ronnie pulled him aside and said Vivian was out, Appice was totally bummed. He knew the argument was about money and the promises that never got inked, but to him, that didn't justify breaking the core. Campbell wasn't just another guitar player, he was part of the band's identity. That tight, explosive sound that launched Holy Diver and Last in Line wasn't just Dio's vocals, it was that four-piece chemistry, firing on all cylinders. And so Vinny pushed back. He was like, Ronnie, don't do it. And he warned him, but the decision had already been made. And when Vivian was out, something else left with him. Something that the band wouldn't get back. According to Jimmy Bain, he called Campbell's firing the biggest mistake of Ronnie's career. He thought it could have been fixed, the equity issue and the arguments and all of it. But when Ronnie doubled down, Bain said that he knew that band was going to lose momentum. And eventually it was true. The songs got more complex, less immediate. Ronnie's need to layer and over-arrange started dragging the music into excess. It just wasn't the same vibe anymore. But the collapse of Dio's original lineup isn't just another rock breakup. It's a masterclass in how trust unravels when vision, ego, and business collide. What started as a band built on talent and belief became a battlefield of misread intentions and mounting silence. And for Vivian Campbell, it was about principle. For Ronnie James Dio, control. For Wendy, protection. For the fans, it was whiplash. Watching a legendary unit split right as it was peaking. And that dragon, Denzel, was more than stagecraft. It became a symbol of grandeur, overreach. But what happens when the myth grows larger than the men holding the guitars? The three records still roar, but behind every note is a fracture that's never fully healed. And the fire that lit those stages, it left ashes behind. To my subscribers, thank you so much. You're just friggin' awesome. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, breathe some fire on that subscribe button. And then turn your head a little to the right and do the same exact thing with the like button. Just fry the living crap out of them. Join the family, and I want to thank you so much for watching.